applause for Margot. Thanks everyone for coming again.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Let's get this one going as well. Thank you so much. Another round of applause. Fabio, new museum, all kinds of exciting things happening in our city. Now, panelists, we are all going to share these two microphones with these long cords so nobody trip when you come up to the stage, all right? That's exciting for people. They'll get a laugh, but we don't want anyone injured. We are missing a few panelists from this first conversation today. Things happen. Maybe they got stuck in the AI sphere somewhere and didn't make it out. This is a dangerous thing these days, you know? Okay, well, we are going to have some fun. So who's up on the screen here might not look exactly the same, and we're just going to go with it. And if they come here, we're going to have a really great conversation with them. But for now, let me tell you who we do have, all right? We do have Maureen Kinnear, the Chief Technology Officer at Payworks. Maureen, please come on up. We have Jamie Mitchie, Marketing Manager, Online Business Systems. And actually, let me tell you, she also runs the Innovation Lab that they have at Online Business Systems, which is something very cool that she will talk about today. We also have Josiane Kroll, the Senior Lead of IT at the Asper School of Business, University of Manitoba. Yes. Katie. Woohoo! We got Katie. All right. Katie, how do you pronounce your last name? Katie Sleggy, everyone. This is what happens when I don't get to chat right in advance. Amazing. Katie is here. She's the Assistant Professor, Faculty of Law at the University of Manitoba with some amazing insights for us. Please come on up as well. All right, and we told Cody we're just having a Women in AI panel, so you can't come. Yeah, no. Okay, there is a mic behind one of you. Don't sit on it. We will have a seat here. Okay. Thank you all for joining us here today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Margot Miller. I get to moderate amazing panels like this around the world. I did just come back from an event in Dubai where I was hosting the AI stage and met some amazing people and had really great conversations about AI. And then when I came home, we did a prep for this panel here today. And let me tell you, the knowledge that we have in Winnipeg will surpass, I think, what you realize that we have here. It was so fun for me to come home and realize and like have these conversations as we prepped with each of you, because the amount of things we're working on here, I think, just go under the radar often, right? Like, we're not yelling from the rooftops always what we're doing here. And I know later today we have another panel with Corinne hosting, and you're going to get even more technical insight in that one. So really just very excited that we have each of you here to share that expertise that you have, because we are really fortunate, and I just think we don't, share it enough. So Fabio, thanks for bringing us together here today. So, we are going to cover many facets of how AI is being used, and you all bring different backgrounds from education to business, to different sides of this conversation, to the legal aspect, which is really, really interesting. So let's get right into it. Maureen, you're right beside me. This is perfect timing. You come with vast expertise in tech leadership, of course now with Payworks as CTO. You've said before that despite before I even ask you this, because you're kind of enterprise side of things, let me find out from the audience here, who here is coming from kind of an enterprise background, or you're currently in like a larger business, so medium, large, or enterprise? Anybody here? Some of you. Okay, just a few. Someone in the very back, thank you. How about more like startup environment? Your founder maybe, you're still building your student maybe. Okay. All right, well, so that's like, there's still a big gap missing, so maybe you are a student still. How many people are still students? Yes, cool, nice big, they stuck together over there. Okay, then maybe like an SME, did I kind of cut that out? I went startup and enterprise. Are you kind of in the middle of the two? Yeah, kind of? Okay. And then some of you are from amazing support organizations, right? You're supporting the ecosystem here in Winnipeg, like those running the event today. Yes, Corinne in the front. Okay, some of you. Okay, so we have kind of a mix. Awesome that we have a big group of students that are going to learn with us here today. So then I'm going back to you, Maureen, because I was going to ask you a question kind of from the enterprise side of things. You've said, interestingly enough, that about like 95% of companies are not seeing a return on AI yet, despite really trying to put it in place. That's an interesting piece of data. We're all really trying, I think. Why is that? What's the constraint still right now?
So I'm not going to take credit for that comment. It's it's from a research study. So it's an MIT research study about bridging the Gen AI divide. Okay, and so what's really interesting about it is that it's saying that despite $30 to $40 billion spent on AI pilots and AI innovation, 95% of those experiments and those opportunities where you're trying to deliver something for your business are not realizing any accretive value or increased value on the P&L. What? Yeah, that's crazy. That's a lot of money to not have any value being seen on the financial statements of an organization despite that spend. And so there are 3 key themes from that article which I think resonate with me, because as I'm working with an enterprise organization, providing services for other enterprises who are leveraging our payroll products, it's really important for us to understand if we're going to go into this in full force, how do we make sure that it will be successful, and how do we make sure it will add value for the company and for the people using it? The first one is point solutions. So a point solution is something that you create that's outside of what people are doing every day. So it's maybe this thing that you build on the side that solves a problem, but it might be just discrete, and it's not connected to how people are working every day. So for instance, maybe for a customer service process that you're trying to solve or deflect calls, right? We'll talk a little bit about this later in an explanation that I have later. But okay, so you could create something that deflects calls, or maybe that's separate, but it won't get used because people want better solutions. They don't want more solutions. The second piece is that in the pilot programs, the system is not adaptive and it doesn't learn. So as the environment is changing for the user, the system is staying the same way it was before, and it's not giving good results, and therefore they use it for a short period of time and then it gets shelved. The third one, which I found really, really interesting, is that faster time to value will occur at double the pace if you use a partner. So if you're an organization or you're working in an organization where AI is something that a company wants to pursue, partner with an organization that has already done it before. Find someone with muscle memory, who has learnings, who has best practices in implementing AI solutions, and you're twice as likely to be in that 5% that is delivering value for the bottom line.
So trust using another partner rather than just trying to do it like internally.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Exactly.
What about the fact that we all feel like we need our own proprietary stuff internally, that safety of our data? We'll get into that later maybe a bit, but we have all these reasons why it must be ours.
I think, okay, so I come from a global organization that I worked in for 20 years that had offices all around the world. And what I will say, in as much as organizations and people think that their process and their business is special, it's not special. There's a lot of ways that commodity processes just work. Customer service, sales, managing your infrastructure, because I'm wearing my technology hat, and how you offer those services. It's very similar no matter what industry you're in. You have to really understand what differentiates you as a business, and the things that don't differentiate your product, where you just need to be as good as everyone else to succeed, but being the best at it doesn't move the needle in terms of your results in the marketplace, you can buy that.
Lots more to dig into there. Thank you for starting us off. I'm going to give the mic over here to Jamie. So with online business systems, like we were saying in your little intro there, you're heading up the innovation lab, but you're also marketing side of things. So you're bringing kind of tech and marketing together. Building off of what we were just talking about, I'd love to know from your perspective, where have you seen AI drive measurable results, if anywhere?
Yeah, that's definitely something that people are always looking for. We can be enthusiastic about it. We can have more confidence in these platforms as over the years they have improved. We're seeing a lot less six-fingered hands in pictures, and no more nightmarish images of Will Smith eating spaghetti, but there's a lot less hallucinations taking place. And so while those aren't quantifiable elements, there's a lot more adoption taking place. And with that, I think the models are improving significantly. But from my own perspective, where I've seen quantifiable actual results is thankfully at our own company. And I have the unique perspective of working with so many different stakeholders in the company, different service lines, and there's just so many different things that they need from our team, whether it's case studies, service overviews, information about a prospect or a client. And so I don't know if everybody else has SharePoint back at their office, but it's really difficult to find things. So when you use something like Copilot, and Copilot has this retrieval augmented generation capability set, so you can put all of these different files against it, and then instead of looking for the latest version of whatever case study or whatever service overview you might need for your next meeting, you can just ask the question and it will show you all of those different things that you're looking for instead of having to go and click and look through the archives. And it's been an incredible time saver for our teams. I know that it's really made people feel a little bit more empowered, and it's made us feel like, you know, we're saving time too. So as far as quantifiable metrics, I think time saving has been a huge thing with retrieval augmented generation.
Just in case people are kind of wondering, in terms of connecting Copilot within your SharePoint so that it can search the right files, is that something complicated? Was it easy to do for people that are maybe thinking they want some kind of better search function within all their messy files?
I asked AI how to do it.
Great, great. Like ChatGPT?
Yeah, I asked
Okay.
ChatGPT, and it actually just walked me through the process, and so I connected it to Teams, so you can interact with it like a chat, and
Awesome.
Works like a charm.
I like this. I like these practical tips too, because I think, you know, often we're sitting here going, that sounds cool, I'm going to figure that out myself later. Okay, so this is a good, easy way we can do it.
Yeah.
And they'll bug you in your DMs if they need the prompt that you used.
They know where to find me.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Okay, over to Josiane here. You have a deeply technical background. You're working with the university now, but you have, you know, vast expertise. And I think, you know, in higher education, there's a whole interesting conversation we can have about what we should be allowed to do in classrooms and all that stuff. But rather, I'd like to ask you in terms of how you've applied it, so we get a bit of a scope of how you're using it, because it's not necessarily just in the classroom. You're doing really interesting things like at the university level. What have you seen that's kind of transformational with it? What's keeping the university, you know, on their toes as it relates to AI? Give us a bit of scope of what you're working on.
So what I would say is that when we think the university, we think just like teaching and learning. But the university is so big. We have the departments, we have the support staff. And when we think about AI, we are not thinking just about the students or the faculty members. We are also thinking the people that is working there. And I would say my approach now and the way that the university is going is more looking for the privacy of the data. So everything that we are going to test and try has to be evaluated before anything else. On my department, we use agents a lot, and I develop, and I can tell it's super, super easy. You even like don't need to ask ChatGPT because the steps is so clear. You can create like in 5 minutes. You have one agent that you can connect to your Teams or SharePoint, what you want. But I think the main difficulty when we think about using AI for business or using AI for teaching and learning is that privacy, is that the data that is going there. When we use the open models or the ones that we don't have to pay, we have using that version, we are feeding the data there. We are using that data to training the model. So our approach, and there at the university, we are heavy users of Microsoft. We are using Copilot. But we still like in those baby steps, trying to see where we are going, what we can do, you cannot. But also in my department and trying to do new things, we realized that with the use of agents, even like Copilot not being the best, I know that everybody knows that. That is not great as other ones that we have. But we can create so many things. Like we can automate things and we can save so much time. It's when you start thinking in ways that you could apply and people discover that you can do that, the requests. It rain requests in your desk saying, I wanted this and that. And then you have to think about that can be done or not.
Josiane, help us out with this a little bit, because I've been trying to use an agent. I've been trying to use the agent built into ChatGPT. I pay for Pro, and I keep running into walls where it's not working for me. And then I have people on panels all the time be like, Margot, it's so easy. You just go in, you tell it what you want. I do this, and then there's some barrier that doesn't get through my password or something. I don't know. It just like keeps not giving me what I want. So what's the secret sauce here? What tool should I be using, or how should we be thinking about it?
Okay, I'm going to talk about what we use there at university.
Yeah,
we
give it
use
to us.
Copilot, but we have alliances for Copilot Studio. And that is just like a button, create your agent, and then where you're linking your data, and how you're going to do it, and simple like that. You just
They
need
always make it sound easy.
You just need a license.
Yeah.
Is that the way that the companies work? Like for everything that you want to do, you need a license. And that you need a license for Copilot Studio for create one agent and then deploy it.
All right, everyone, look into Copilot Studio after today. We'll keep giving you more tips as we go. Okay, we pass the mic over to Katie down the end of the line here. Now, Katie, you have a really interesting background and kind of current work between the intersection of like education and legal system. I'd love to know, I know we can approach this from different aspects for you because you have really cool parts to the work that you're doing. What do you think about kind of the intersection of education and law and how we're using AI? I think there's a lot to consider, but kind of how are you helping use these kind of tools without risking like outsourcing our judgment and our ability to think and learn?
Yeah, so my job on these kind of panels is to be the wet blanket, right? So I'm here to remind you about things like ethics and bias and discrimination and ways in which outsourcing our decision-making capabilities might have detrimental impacts. And so when I hear people get really, really excited about these big enterprise solutions, it's like, cool, all right, but I want to know where the data is being stored, right? I'm really interested in that. I'm really interested in privacy and security. Josiane brought that up a little bit, right? If we're going to be housing some kind of major client information, right? And then in a legal context, we're going to add on another layer of solicitor client information, the most privileged kind of information that we have in our society, right? Things that we want to make sure that we have trust in that ability. So already, right, we're hearing some tensions coming out in the conversation. Here Josiane saying, oh, well, you got to use Copilot, but not that one you get for free, right? Because that one doesn't work so good. We need the studio because that's the high level one. That's the good one. And this is an interesting part of the conversation when it comes to what tools are going to be available to which people, right? Who is able to use ChatGPT? The Pro version. Margot mentioned, oh, I pay for Pro, so I should be able to do it really well, right? And it's like, well, who can pay for Pro? Not everybody. And not everyone is using those same tools and implementing them in the same way in their types of solutions. So that brings another specter into the conversation about the kinds of payment that is possible within organizations and for particular applications. The way I come at this is often also from a legal lens. So I do a lot of presentations to judges, to lawyers, thinking about how different language models might be used in the judicial context. And you kind of start to get worried too about different problems there. So happy to talk more about that as we get into it.
Yeah, wait, I do want to stay actually with Katie for a minute here.
And I want
to
add
you want to
something.
add? Yeah, please, yeah.
Because license, you're talking about a license, and when we work with any AI tool, everything, it's a license for you that is developing, but there is also a license for that person that is going to use. So you have to consider that. So it's not just one license. When I develop one agent, I have to consider how many people is going to use that. And I have an amount of credits that I can use. So there are many things to consider. It's not just, I'm going to buy the license and I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, please.
The only comment I wanted to make is that you are not the wet blanket. You are the brand protector in all of this, which is really, really important. And in as much as you think and aspire to all of these, blue sky ideas, it's so important to keep privacy, where the data is going, residency, how the large language model is using that data. And if you have controls in your data today, ensuring that those controls and data masking are maintained as you leverage the system. So you're protecting our brand with your views.
Yeah, I mean, let's continue talking about that for just a second. So you have both now mentioned, and actually many of you have mentioned, this need for security. So if I'm a business and I'm saying, okay, I'm going to first make my team members justify how they want to use AI rather than just giving everyone a license because it costs a lot of money, right? Figure out how they're actually using it. Does their business actually need it? Because maybe they're going to end up in that 95% where they build something and it's just a waste for everyone. It's not integrated properly, all those things you brought up. But then what should be the first thing that you put in place in terms of rules of how to use it or background settings for safety of information? What do we all not realize that we can do right off the bat to make sure that we're protecting information within the tools that are kind of common that we are giving to our team members? So anything that comes to mind?
So sometimes I like to think about this in terms of a purpose-built solution versus an out-of-the-box solution. So are organizations thinking about an AI solution where they're getting some of the tools and they're creating their own systems and databases where data is going to be housed in-house or in a local data storage facility and you really have a sense of that data lifecycle? Or are you integrating in one of the major enterprise solutions that's easily available either freely or through a licensing arrangement for your particular business needs, right? So if we think about it in a law firm environment, lawyers are dealing with legal data. They're dealing with information that is sensitive to their clients, information that would be part of a privileged brief if it was being put forward to court. And so if you're going to be using any kind of the free online tools, well, first of all, you're really worried that you're breaching solicitor-client privilege when you're putting that information in. And different businesses are going to have their own versions of this in terms of confidentiality, right? But this is an analogy that I think is powerful because of how much we value that privilege at the center of our society, right? So then also, I think another thing that's interesting is the copyright aspects of this, right? If you have intellectual property in something that you're creating, you're thinking about, all right, who is the author of this work? Who owns it? This is my intellectual work product that is associated with the things that I've done and the things that I've worked hard on. And so there are different ways in which people use large language models to refine their work. Are you copying and pasting it in and saying, give me a summary of this, or copy pasting it in and say, okay, cut it apart, make me a one-paragraph summary, and then analyze it from the other perspective and ask me questions. And large language models are getting better at doing those kinds of things now. But did your intellectual work product now become part of the training data set that is going on in the background to further develop that information, right? There's also sort of loops of hallucinations that can occur through this. You can ask a large language model to produce output for you. It can produce something that is hallucinated, and then it gets fed back into the training data so that it relies on something real when it does its retrieval augmented generation, but actually it's just its own hallucinations that sort of propagate through the system.
Ready to add?
Yeah, so there were 2 points that I'm thinking of in all of this. So if you work for an enterprise and generally just general Gen AI isn't approved for use, or you're running an organization, don't fool yourself. So the other piece I forgot to mention about that article is that 90% of employees are already using Gen AI to help them in their roles today, whether you've approved it or not. It is happening. It's happening every day. It's probably happening every hour. So understand that. Work with your data privacy leaders, work with your lawyers, set up an acceptable use policy if it's not available. So it's very, very clear what is okay, and making sure that you're not putting any of your intellectual property. There's policies in place that say IP, company use information can't go in. Generic stuff, sure, that's fine. The other thing, I'm thinking about the students who may be working soon, who may be involved in working through choosing vendors that have AI embedded in the software. Oh, read those terms and conditions. Understand the data residency. So although you may be signing up for an enterprise solution that has residency in Canada, if that's important for data sovereignty, dig deep into what happens in the large language model. Often, from what I've seen so far, the large language model is actually not available in Canada, and you need to understand where the data at rest is going and whether it's deleted immediately, et cetera, et cetera. So the devil is always in the details. Understand them, work with your legal and privacy team to dig deep into that because it matters.
I actually want to ask the audience a quick question here. How many of you know what your company's policy is on whether you're allowed to put their information into AI, use it, whatever? How many of you know what your company's policy is? Yeah, okay, that's pretty good. That was like half the room. All right, not bad. What do you think? Do you think that they... That
does not make me feel good.
How many of you follow the rules that say you're not allowed to put it in AI? Yeah, half the hands that were up a minute ago. Yeah, it's risky. What are you going to add?
No, I'm going to add that if a company or organization wants to use AI, and as you said, everybody's already using there. Maybe a company, it's not aware, but everybody's using. You need to start with some guidelines. Start some guidelines. And then when you have that in place, you are going to have more control of the data that staff is putting there on AI. And another thing that I learned about using AI, special for develop applications. If we are using AI for that develop that application, or that application uses AI, we should disclose that. We should disclose that to the users. This application is going to use AI, and if you submit the data here, it's going to be fed to AI. And that is something that I have some projects where I have like data. I have name, I have address, I have a resume, I have like statements. And then when I feed in one agent that is going to use AI, I have to consider, is that the person that sent that information, that resume to me, is that person okay if I use AI to review that? So I have to disclose that. And that it's one recommendation that I give. Before you get in trouble, if that tool, disclose. Say that that tool will use AI for any reasons that you have there.
I haven't seen very many companies doing that publicly, like saying we're about to run your stuff through AI, but they've been doing it for many, many years. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. I think at the university it's more upfront to that, to say,
Yeah.
oh, if we are going to use AI for something, we are going to make it clear and we are going to disclose that.
Yeah. Katie, I'm actually wondering, from the legal perspective, are you seeing already kind of some early signs or trends in how our legal system is preparing to deal with this? It's a big topic, obviously. Like, are they moving fast enough? What are you seeing?
This is always the question. Are we moving fast enough, right?
Yeah, sure.
So in technology law policy, people describe this as the pacing problem, right? Is technology out of step with law and legal policy? And whenever we get new tech, we don't want to regulate it, right? Because we want to allow innovation. We can't have regulation too early because that'll drown out any possible innovation. So this gets called a lot of things. You'll see it called the Collingridge dilemma. My favorite thing to call it is the avocado ripeness problem, right? You ever seen it? Ever tried to ripen an avocado on your counter? Not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet. Oh, too late, right? You missed the 5-minute window when it was edible. And
that happened to me this week.
Of course, it happens all the time. And this is what is happening with AI regulation right now. So we see the Europeans are the first movers on this, as they often are. Europeans bring in the GDPR 2018, sort of the natural successor of the general data protection regulations that preceded that in the EU. And they bring in the AI Act. Comes into force in 2024. A lot of the provisions are not coming into force until 2026, right? So they're sort of in the in-between enforcement period right now. And we're starting to see how the AI assessment, impact assessment, conversations around opacity, transparency, the right to a human decision maker, these sorts of things are becoming more commonplace. In Canada, we're way behind on these conversations. Big part of that is our privacy legislation is very outdated, right? Some of you might be familiar with PIPEDA, also sometimes called PIPEDA, right? The Protection of Information and Electronic Documents Act. And this is based on principles from the late 1990s, right? The Fair Information Principles have their origin in the OECD arrangements on this. But this is conversations people are having in 98, 99. The legislation's drafted in 2000, comes into force in 2001. And so we're kind of dealing with this 25-year-old framework when we're thinking about data and how it is to be processed, a lot of which is really focused on an idea about consent, right? And so in legal circles, when people talk about data protection, they're always talking about whether people consented to that use or disclosure of the information. And that starts to make a lot less sense in an environment that's powered by AI. Right? In an environment where there's neural networks, where you can make really powerful inferences from data, even de-anonymized data that can be really easily put back into context and can reveal powerful insights about people's health, about their financial information, about things simply due to the data exhaust that comes from the way we live on the internet on a daily basis. So conversations on this are ongoing, but it's early, right? And we'll see how things go, and if we look south of the border, we need to be a little bit worried about the cross-pollination between politics and Silicon Valley.
Yeah, there's a whole other big conversation we can get into here that I don't know that we have time for entirely on this panel. But yeah, I host a lot of conversations in Europe right now. And it's interesting because there's a lot of people on the panels that are saying, you know, the opposite. They wish their government wasn't putting all these rules in place because they could move a lot faster. They could keep up with the US. They could make their, you know, GDPR higher. They could make more money in their businesses. So if you are here in Canada and the rules are still slower, then maybe move quickly on your ideas because there's another side to the coin where they feel like they're being like restricted too much. And, you know, US is just getting way ahead of them. So there's interesting big piece of this conversation. Before we go too far off this, Jamie, I do want to pop back to you because I think with online business systems, you were a big part of helping create kind of this responsible AI and different usage guidelines. Is that right? In terms of like internally how you're using it. So we kind of missed you earlier, but I'd love your perspective on this topic as well.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, no, it's obviously everywhere, right? And so some of the principles I think that all of our multifaceted teams really needed to consider was access when it came to a responsible AI usage policy. That's what we were seeing. We wanted people to be encouraged and excited and innovative and curious about these different platforms and all of their capabilities, but we also have a deeply ingrained cybersecurity mindset at online because that's a big part of what we do too. So there's a lot of apprehension and just concern about responsible AI usage. So those guardrails were really important to come from a big stakeholder group at online. We had our data services team, our cybersecurity team, our innovation lab team, and a few other business stakeholders so that we had those considerations well covered. And I think some of the 4 elements I think that come to mind would be access. So what kind of access is going to be permitted for different, we call ourselves onliners. What kind of access is going to be permitted for onliners? Because there's some information that maybe we want our sales and business development groups to see, but maybe that's not necessary for other parts of the company. So access, safety, is that being, how should I say this? The ethical use of the AI platforms. Are they being responsible? Are we being respectful of the information that we're providing it? And then security, where is that information going to be stored, like everybody's covered today? So that's something else to take into consideration. And then accountability. So we have to make sure that we're, not only when we're putting information into these models, but when we're taking it out, it's not just ready to go to print. We've seen that error in a newspaper quite recently. Sorry. We've seen that error in a newspaper quite recently where someone took something, copy-pasted it right from ChatGPT and just published it to hundreds of thousands of people. That's kind of embarrassing. So when you get something out of any kind of a language model, take the time to be that human in the loop and review it before you pass it on to people for, for gospel or for print or for some kind of a guideline. So that's what we kind of took into consideration for the AI policy.
Do you anticipate this is going to be a fireable offense? If you start putting things into a tool that you're not supposed to, that your company policy that you read or didn't read says you're not supposed to? Are we going to start seeing that, do you think?
I think it depends where you work. There was a lot of people that didn't put their hands up today.
Yeah. Yeah. They didn't have jobs. Half the room does not have a, just, yeah. Okay, yeah. It'll be interesting to see. Okay, Josiane, I know we talked to you just a minute ago about kind of how you're using AI at a broader level, like within, because it's a big thing at the university. It's not just with students. But I do want to understand a little bit, like from the student perspective, how can students be using AI but still have it be like a safe learning environment? We talked about all these fears and everything around how we're using it. What's happening kind of actually at the student level with expectations for them?
I think at the beginning, everybody had that fear to use AI like for teaching and learning. But now I see that most of the faculty is already accepting that. And that's a good thing because we have to close that gap between academy and industry. So when a student finish the course and go to work, probably is going to face some AI thing that it has to do it. For example, if you are in computer science and you're going to work in a company, you're going to use GitHub that has Copilot agent there. So you need to know how to use AI. And I feel that the education is going the way that we are realizing that is important and has to be part on how we teach the best way to use it. Like the best way that we are going to craft a prompt, the best way that we are going to put the information that should be there, the information that shouldn't. But I see that as a benefit. And today, we have faculty members that they just allow to use it. They even put it there on their assignments, you are allowed to use it, but the way that you write the assignment, it's different. because you don't want something that just came from AI. You want to understand if the end student learn something or not. So I feel that it's making more difficult for faculty to create these assignments because they have considered that students most likely they are going to use AI. And why not? They are using for everything.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's going to end up being something that's harder from the faculty side of things to keep up with it.
Yeah, I see a lot of faculty members saying that's a lot of work for them, to create those assignments, but it's the future. AI is not going anywhere. It came, it's going to stay, and it's here. So we have to face it.
Yeah. Maureen, we'll pass that mic down over to you this way. For those not using AI deeply in their businesses yet, so they're listening to all this stuff and they're like, this is cool, there's rules we should follow, but we're not even really using it yet. What is the first step? How can they start thinking about how to integrate it, especially if they are, in a big organization, it's harder to roll things out? What's your day one advice so they can, next quarter, they're like, we know beginning of 2026, we want to start doing something with AI. Now, what do they do?
Start with business outcomes, not shiny things. That's my advice. So it goes back to the study, and it goes back to those principles of if you're going to invest the time in looking at a way to implement AI, I look at it in multiple ways. Work with your business stakeholders. It's so great from my perspective, I was saying before this, to have business stakeholders on the stage here who represent various areas of an enterprise, because from a technologist perspective, we're just ready to go. We are behind the gates of the horse race and we're ready to run. But it is not productive to run and build something that is a point solution that is not integrated within existing workflows and cannot prove value for the enterprise. So start with business outcomes. And when you start that pilot, the KPIs that you build for your organization should not be the number of pilots. It should not be the number of POCs. You can have some companies have 100. Great. I hope they all have a business outcome and a KPI associated with them. So those are all successful ones that'll be part of that 5%. I truly hope that. But when I hear that, I'm a little skeptical, right? So, it seems so simple and maybe underwhelming that that's my answer, but it really is. Start with the business outcome. And if you're trying to achieve a business outcome in your business, ask first, can AI help us solve it? If it can, think about whether it's worth it, and then move forward. And if it's not worth it because you can just automate it with RPA or change your business process, just like you have with every other technology that's been in the toolbox since I have started my career, that's how you should evaluate it.
Certainly, sounds like we want to make sure it's welded into our existing workflows, right? You've given us that nice tip. Do you have an example, something that was transformational that you did?
Well, there's one we're working on.
Tell us.
Okay, so
we're going to pretend it's in the 5% already, but you're working on it.
And it's embedded within a workflow. It's embedded with an enterprise system.
Good.
And we're using a partner to help us make it happen. So I'm covering all of those three things.
You listened to the article yourself, yes.
I did. So it's around our customer service. So at Payworks, customer service is the thing that we hang our hat on. It's our differentiated service that we give to our customers. They rely on us for that. That being said, we can only provide it during business hours today. What if we could take advantage of AI in providing agentic capabilities for customer service that is helpful? Remember? Okay, so we're going to put KPIs there to make sure that it enhances the experience. It does not detract or replace from the existing experience that people have. So what we're looking at is within our own CRM that we have put in place, how do we take advantage of the AI that already exists within that software suite? We're already using call summary. So a large language model is listening to the call recordings, and instead of the customer service agent having to take time after the call to type in all of the information, it's just had it happening automatically through that process. Now, as more and more tickets are coming in, it can gather more information and we can solve more problems, which then gives us more access within the large language model to then create an agent within the system, which sounds like it's really easy, so I'm excited about that. I'll take that back to my team. And then it can start helping the CSRs solve faster. So then the KPIs we put to that, if you're used to metrics in a call center, it would be first call resolve and mean time to resolution. So, okay, when we're using these technologies and testing them, are we able to do the A/B testing against the human and the AI to make sure that the agentic support is going to be as good, at least as good as the human, and so on and so forth.
When we were prepping in advance today, you talked a little bit about kind of upstream data or data that made it possible to even start maybe this project or a similar
Yes.
one. Can you tell us a bit about that or how we should be thinking about the data we already have? Because if we're going to like start training something, right, we need to start somewhere.
Exactly. And so I would say in what I've seen so far, so large language models have advanced so much in the last few years. When I look at when we were looking at AI and starting 5-6 years ago, it's like, oh my gosh, this data problem is like boiling the ocean. How do we even start? We'll never get started. Oh, let's just not start. So unfortunately, that's where you get sometimes because it's too much time to get your system ready and up and running. Well, things have changed. You've got the opportunity now to use multimodal data, so it can be unstructured, it can be voice, it can be video, it can be pictures, it can be many, many things. So now we have an opportunity to take data that exists. So for instance, we have some data on the customer service side, but like every business, standard operating procedures, they may be documented. Are we actually following them? I would say sometimes they're followed. Sometimes they're not because there's a better way. Do we know where the most current version is? Back to the SharePoint challenge of where's the current version of this thing that we need to use to put into a RAG model to give advice. So what we're doing and considering is taking years of call data that we already have, which will help us identify the most frequent and easy to solve with lowest first call resolve and highest first call resolve and lowest mean time to resolution to determine, okay, we've got that, we've got the voice call of how it was solved, ingest it into the large language model. It can automate the creation of standard operating procedures that we're actually doing, and we can get to that so much faster than the process, which no one wants to do, by the way. Who loves searching for documentation and reading it and making sure it's accurate? Shocking, no one put their hands up. So here's an opportunity for us to take advantage of a large language model to just make our lives a little happier, get to the part that adds value, and deliver.
So much good content in there. Thank you for your tips. This is perfect. We want things people can, really start thinking about. Jamie, over to you here. We were just talking about searching for documents, but let's talk about kind of from your marketing perspective that you have. So we search and discovery, in general on the internet everywhere. It looks different now already, and that's going to continue to kind of change with conversational AI and different tools that are being created. What does this mean for like our brands themselves, for visibility of what we're working on, because we have all different sizes of businesses in here. They're trying to be seen out there. If algorithms are deciding what goes out there. I mean, that's been the case for a while. It's looked like SEO. Maybe now it looks a little bit more like single click LLM kind of search. You're not getting that traffic to your website anymore that you used to and things like that. How are you thinking about it from a marketing perspective? What do we kind of need to know?
It feels strangely familiar because, I don't know, as a digital marketer for many years, as soon as you figure out the SEO game, as soon as you figure it out, as soon as you start ranking on page 1, they change it. And then you're back at page 3, and now you don't need microsites and you don't need blogs, you need something else. White font with keywords embedded on the images on the site. Like,
yeah, we used to be doing that, yeah.
Guilty, yeah. But now it's different, and I think that it's just part and parcel with always keeping up with what's new. And so back in the day, there used to be FAQ pages on websites, and that was really helpful. And I think those are going to make a resurgence because people are asking for things in language models. Like you said, they're not looking in Google necessarily anymore. They're asking ChatGPT. And so they don't use a keyword where it's, robotic. It's conversational, and that's where conversational AI is really coming in handy because it is more human-like in its interactive capabilities. So when your site is not showing up, then you have to consider, is it in a conversational format that an AI can reason with? Because the AI is probabilistic. It's not deterministic. It's going to be scanning the interweb for answers that match what the user is looking for. And instead of a keyword match, it's a question match or it's contextual. And so I think having that probabilistic versus deterministic mindset as a marketer, then that's going to make revamping your site and looking at it with a very different lens a lot easier. That's what we're having to do with our own. We're out doing a brand relaunch in the next couple of months, and all of these new considerations are on our radar.
Certainly a lot to think about. I know when we were doing our prep too, one thing that Cody mentioned as well on this same topic when we were all kind of talking about it is the fact that we also have to make sure that the content on our sites and that we're putting out there is not over AI'd in and of itself, because if everything you create is from AI, you're actually not going to like rank off of that in the same way as if you wrote it in a natural kind of conversational way. So you guys can all bug him because he wasn't here now today, although it was a flight issue. It's not actually his fault. But you can still bug him and ask him for all of his tips on ranking on LLMs, because he's got a bunch that we would have told you today. But instead, just get his DMs and tell him I sent you. Okay, I actually want to jump around here a little bit. Katie, I want you to be able to kind of tell us a story about the misuse of AI and what we should be, like, do you have a cautionary tale? Because I know we've been talking about this and like how we should rank and all this stuff, but what's a real example out there of something people have like done wrong that we can learn from?
I have so many examples of this. There's a great one making the rounds in the media this week. Okay. I saw it on CTV and on CBC News. You can Google it. There's a guy who is suing OpenAI. He says that ChatGPT made him lose his grip on reality. He went into a form of psychosis. He was using ChatGPT almost like a therapist, having conversations with ChatGPT. ChatGPT was telling him, oh, you're so brilliant. You have figured things out that people just don't know, right? You are a step above the rest of society. And it was almost gaslighting him, right? So he was kind of going deeper and deeper into this conversation. At one point, he thought maybe he'd check it out. So, of course, he asks another AI, can I trust ChatGPT? The other AI says, well, ChatGPT generally is pretty good, right? So, and he just starts to lose grip on reality because of that conversation. And you can think about the great movie Spike Jonze made, Her, right? Where Joaquin Phoenix falls in love with his operating system, voiced by Scarlett Johansson, as a cautionary tale. But the way that I like to think about this from the research is through a lens of automation bias and automation complacency. Right? So we have really good research from decades of human-computer interaction science, human automation interaction science, that shows that when people are dealing with automated systems, they tend to check out, right? They allow the machine to take the driver's seat in a way that is different than how we interact with other humans. And that can be a real problem if we start to allow an LLM to do the first cut of the issues list, to do the first draft for us, that, oh yeah, I'm going to go edit that first draft, right? Of course I will. Oh, I'm going to use it for my assignment. I'm still going to proofread it. I'm still going to make sure it's better. And sure, maybe you will the first time, the first 5 times. But if it starts to produce output that is convincing, that saves you time, that optimizes and feels efficient, then maybe you won't. And then what happens that time when it's wrong? Right? What happens when it does hallucinate? Because it always will, right? Even if we say, oh, ChatGPT is getting better, fewer and fewer hallucinations. Hallucination is a feature, not a bug. It will always be there as part of how LLMs operate.
That's a great quote. Hallucination is a feature, not a bug. I don't think a lot of us think about it that way. So that's a nice one to remember. I was on a panel recently where we were talking all about dating in AI, and some of the stuff that you're saying where this guy, like, you know, was told that he was the best. A lot of the dating apps, the dating AI tools are meant to do that. They're meant to make you feel like you are so special. And this is why, like, no one in real life could ever make you feel as special as it can, because it's only telling you you're amazing. Yeah. So it's no wonder that this happens to people, right? In this guy's defense, who is now, well, he's got a different kind of defense now. He's going to the legal system. All right, actually, at the U of M, Josiane, you're doing some interesting stuff with like VR and AI. Tell us about that project, and you know, how does it tie in with everything we're talking about here? How are you using VR with AI?
So we use VR with AI. So the software that is linked to the headsets has AI. So we are able to customize one agent. So to give you more context to understand how that is used and how that improve education, I was part of a project. It was a pilot. We still like learning things there. So it was for food, human nutrition and human food and nutrition, something like that. Is the course. But in this course, students they have to talk one to each other. Sometimes one play the patient, another the counselor, and vice versa. Now with VR, the student can talk with one AI agent that we have customized. And then the student has to learn in that context. It's more close to real. Because if a student talk with another student, maybe the student that is there is a little bit shy or can not give a good answer. But with the AI, we can make sure that it is going to touch in those concepts that we give in the classroom. So that's a good example where we use AI. And what I see from the students when they use first day that they put the headsets, they were so scared, they were shy. Some were saying that they have a headache, they could not use the VR headset. But the second, third time, they were getting so good that we basically were giving them the headsets, they were putting, they were adjusting everything, they were going there and finding the model and completing everything. I think that is this perspective that you think, oh, technology maybe is going to scary, even students, because VR, it's not something that new for them because they play video game all the time, right? Most of them, I'd say. But they are more used to that. So when we bring that to the classroom, we see that they are a little bit, have that fear and use or that excuse, oh, I'm not feeling well, I have a headache or things. You know that maybe the student doesn't feel comfortable with the technology. But that's, again, is a good use of AI and VR.
Yeah, nowadays I think it's mandatory that we're comfortable with technology. I think the skill that we need to learn is really that like comfortability, that adaptability, willing to take on new things. That in itself is what, young people and students we need to teach them and have them help learn.
Yeah, and we also have students that they are opposed to use AI because of the environment.
Because of everything that Katie is teaching us.
Yeah, if you think about how much for training a model, everything, how much is this costing for the environment, maybe you're going to reconsider use for simple things, right? But there are some students that they are very concerned and they prefer not to use AI.
Okay, we're going to do something that's going to be a little funny with one microphone because I want to do a speed round. So maybe we'll start with the mic in your hands on the end there, Katie, and you're just going to answer and then pass it down quickly, all right? So the first question is, what is the first app you open in the morning?
Text messages.
Pass it on. Tell us.
Teams.
Teams, first one, right to work.
Instagram.
Yeah, fair enough.
Text message.
Okay, all right, stay with you. We'll go back the other direction. What is your favorite AI tool? Are you going to say the one you're creating?
No, I wouldn't do that.
All right.
And my favorite one right now is Gemini or ChatGPT.
Okay.
ChatGPT.
Gemini.
Oh, split.
I like the Air Canada chatbot, the one that told the guy that he could get a reimbursement and he couldn't. That one makes me laugh real hard.
You would pick that kind of example. Perfect. What's the most creative thing that you've seen with AI?
Some of the image stuff with Wall-E or Firefly or Midjourney. I mean, some of that stuff's beautiful and pretty cool.
Yeah.
I saw one agent was on May during a Google presentation that they presented how they were using agents and how Gemini was there, and they show how human was that agent talk with a customer. So that to me was very impressive.
Definitely the image gen that's going on. My uncle's an animator, and he shared one of his colleagues has her name's Trash Can Roxanne on Instagram, and she's won all kinds of international awards for her animation. So check it out.
And her name is easy to remember.
My answer is so boring and just gives you insight into my personality.
the most creative thing, Maureen.
I don't think it's, well, anyway, I use it to synthesize ideas that I have all the time. So it helps me be more creative in my thinking, things that I never thought would be connected that I'm considering now. I throw into ChatGPT and just see what comes out of it. And sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't.
I love that. This guy, Dave Kinnear, recently told me about, he's like a product expert, and he told me about this tool that I'm about to use because it's, you can just talk to it all day, like quick voice messages, and then at the end of the day, it will put together like a summary for you or pull out the most important things. And for me, I'm more of like a talker than a writer, and so I think that like if I'm at an event like this and it's really like busy, and in the breaks I can be like, oh, this person said this person said this, or remind me to do this, or whatever, and then it like can give me a nice summary of the day. So I'm looking forward to trying that tool out. It's not so creative, but you made me think of it. Okay, still in a speed style, but I'll give you different questions. So for you, Maureen, what's one enterprise capability that you hope AI makes boringly reliable?
Enterprise change management to support digital transformation.
Jamie, good luck, she said. Jamie, what's one cultural habit that organizations must adopt to stay competitive right now?
Staying curious and learning.
Lovely. Josiane, what's one classroom or campus experience that you hope AI makes possible?
I would say it's like students interacting with agents and being like using technology and they be comfortable.
Katie, what law do you hope comes into place right away with everything that's happening here in Canada?
Privacy reform. We need privacy reform.
Yay. All right. Okay, you're fine. The speed round is over. Well done, everyone. Okay, as we get kind of toward the end here, I want to look into the future of your hopes and dreams and maybe fears for you down the end there, Katie. Well, since we've got the mic over there, we'll start with you. When you imagine the next decade, what guardrails do you hope that we'll have in place for this, truly, like in the next 10 years?
Yeah, I'd really interested in seeing more attention paid to trust, right? What are the situations where you're able to trust the system? What are the criteria for that? And also then in line with that, reliance, right? What are the situations that are creating over-reliance on these types of situations? Are there things that we need to carve out that shouldn't be AI potential areas of growth? Right? We talk about the human in the loop. I've heard that language a couple times today. Right? Are there times when the loops should be human only, and there should be other loops where we're okay if an AI is like a co-agent with us? And then maybe there are some things that we can carve off for AI to do autonomously that we feel totally comfortable with. And those are, I think, important questions that society needs to ask itself and think about the ethical and legal implications before making the delegation. And I worry that it often is the other way around.
Yeah, and we didn't even get into a conversation today about job loss and some of the risks and things like that, but there are potentially like gaps where we actually want to not allow it simply because we're worried about a segment of our population not having jobs. It's a big other conversation that we don't have time for today. But okay, let's keep going down the line here. Josiane, you've talked about kind of having like a lifelong learning mandate. What are the new baseline skills that you think are kind of non-negotiable as we're all moving into, AI workplaces, or especially like obviously you're in a school environment, so for students thinking about it, or just generally like what are those baseline skills that we all need to have now in this AI world that we live in?
I think like when I start like on the IT area, I even didn't have Java. And I have to learn Java. I start with Pascal. If someone knows here, it's very old language. But I start with Pascal. And now I'm a person that I have to develop in Java. I needed to use Python. And now I have to learn all those APIs from AI, from things that are coming. I have to learn how to develop, deploy one agent. So I feel that for everybody, it's not just for students. If we stop and we not keep learning, we are going to fall behind. Because at some point, you are going to be replaced for someone that has more knowledge than you. So that way that I feel I have to learn all the time. So it's through doing certifications, it's through doing courses, or self-learning. You go there, you're watching a YouTube video, say, oh, that's cool, I'm going to try to do it myself. And then it's a way that you learn.
Does the university have a prompt engineering course or a how to make an agent course, or where should we be learning that kind of stuff?
Not that I'm aware, but there may be some students try on their own, because today it's so easy to find the instructions and how to learn. If you just Google, like for tutorials or things, how to create one agent with chat GPT, with open AI, it's going to give you all the steps. So even if you are not a tech person, you can start. And I have worked with people that are not a tech, and over the time develop that tech skill to even like to develop software. So yeah, you have to keep learning. You don't have a choice.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jamie, over to you. What's one shift that you think is coming that most business leaders still don't see coming just yet? What are you guys kind of like future looking and kind of thinking about?
I think impact, I know that's a really big area to cover, but how prevalent AI is becoming everywhere. I think when we first started learning about Gen AI, I likened it to water, how it just gets into everything. We were trying to decide who's going to be the product owner for Gen AI at our company, and it was like, well, it's actually over here though, and somebody else is using it over here, and there's a new release of this over here. So it just, who can own one thing like that? It's not one thing, it's so many things. And so Andrew Ng has a quote that says, AI is the next electricity. And I really like that one. It's a lot more visually appealing than mine was. But if you think, okay, that started out with some lamps in people's homes, and then maybe a refrigerator, I'm going to get the timeline wrong, dishwashers, you know, like it's just going to come everywhere. It's going to become so prevalent. It's going to be part of infrastructure, I think. And how can we prepare for that? Well, baby steps.
How do you empower your team members to be using it without just like giving them all expensive licenses and stuff, right? Like, as you're saying, we've got someone over here who needs it and someone over here. So how are you guys like letting everyone know you're empowered to use it, but within these, you know, safety and security guidelines and all these things? Like, how do you get that balance right to make sure people actually feel like they can spend time on it in their busy day? Because it does take learning and practice and, you know.
And there's a spectrum of learning and adoption and application. And so what we're doing is we're surveying our entire workforce, and we're saying, you know, how proficient, how confident do you feel? Where are you using it? What platforms of choice do you have? What shared challenges and gaps are you having? And so now we're going to have different subsets so that we can pay attention to and either help bring up their training, or maybe we've got a group of AI champions that can go in and speak to other team members.
I love that advice because it's so simple, but we don't think of doing it. I think like a lot of people in this audience are probably like, I don't know, who should I give licenses to? It's so much to think about. It's like, just maybe ask them.
Yeah.
Like, who has a really good idea of how we could be using it in our company and how much time they think it would take them and whatever. Like, just ask them
Just
what their
ask the
proficiency
question.
is. Yeah. Do a quick survey next week, everyone. It's on your task list. Okay, Maureen, what does a successful human-centered AI enterprise look like to you in the next 10 years?
This was a hard question.
Yeah.
This was a very hard question. I had to call friends.
You're the
for it.
right person. Oh, good. Call a friend. It's like
I
that
had
game
to
show.
call friends. And so where we got to after a very long conversation over coffee was that I know, because I was like, I don't know how to answer
Can't let
this
Margot
one.
down on this question.
And it's about, you know, AI as the co-intelligence tool, AI as that co-pilot that works with you, being really mindful of, back to the first question, being mindful of where it makes sense to let AI take the reins and where you've got to keep the human in the loop. And where we got to was, has anyone ever read the book, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Successful People? There might be 8 now, I don't know. But it's got this 2x2 matrix, and I think that where we got to was, hopefully, with the advent of this technology and the innovation, we're living more in the important, non-urgent space, because that's where the big ideas happen, and that's where innovation can occur, maybe to help us detect, prevent, and treat disease better, for better quality of life, to find ways of delivering clean energy to the planet for those communities that need it the most. And we can take those things that are not important but just need to happen, and they don't have high risk, let AI do those things, get rid of the repetitive stuff that doesn't bring us joy. Back to Marie Kondo, if it doesn't bring you joy and it has low value, just like maybe we should look at automating that and using AI so that we can have less time in the fire because we're taking advantage of those tools to help us proactively deal with everything that we're dealing with every day, and we're spending more time in that high value, important area where we can start solving the problems that feel unsolvable today.
What an amazing way to end.
Thank you, friends who got me there.
Yeah, phone a friend really worked out. Okay, I do want to give our panelists a big round of applause. That was a lot of good insight that you've given us. We are very fortunate in that I have an indication that we can do some audience Q&A. So we didn't warn you, but yes, we have a question right there. Do we want to, how's your voice projection? Do we want to try and run a microphone? Do we want to, you can? Yeah, fabulous, thank you. So just there, right there, yep. And the rest of you, get them ready.
Thank you for the time and the speech. And currently, I want to introduce myself a little bit. I am a website developer and machine learning engineer, and currently I'm developing I have a startup idea, and I'm trying to develop my own product. But my concern is my main concern probably it's IP. It's aside from using Google LLM ChatGPT to search if there's already some similar product competitor exist. Aside from these, are there some other ways to check what are the IP issue that I should check if there's similar.
We do have a really great event that happens in Winnipeg annually, and it's coming up in February. I think they just got funding again to do it this year. But it's a whole event all around intellectual property in Canada, in tech specifically. And the people who can tell you more about that are probably in this room somewhere. So we'll try and get a better answer for you right now. But there is a whole cool event about it, specifically for Manitobans. And all of the people at Tech Manitoba, Manitoba Innovates, North Forge. North Forge is the one I think who actually gets the budget for it. So that's a really cool event. So keep an eye out for that one, IP Elevate, I think it's called. And otherwise, does anyone have any other tips right now? Here, I can pass this one to you here.
Yeah. So of course, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer, okay? This is legal information, it's not legal advice, okay? Do not ask ChatGPT legal advice, okay? Full stop, don't do it. Right at the bottom it says, ChatGPT can make mistakes. Read our terms of use and our privacy policy, right? We know how LLMs work, right? LLMs are a probabilistic matrix of the most likely thing to be next in a sentence. LLMs are also programmed to be nice, charming, and they are anthropomorphized to be like your eager research assistant that stayed up all night drinking Red Bull and reading the internet. And it knows lots of things, but it isn't necessarily able to give you correct advice. So do not ask ChatGPT what the IP issues are. Right? At the law school, we do have a startup we have a business law clinic where some people sometimes go to get some kind of cursory legal advice from students. So that's something that you might look into. It can be hard to figure out what the various IP rules are. I think the event that Margot mentioned is a really good idea. But yeah, never ask an LLM for legal advice, okay? LLMs are designed to please you. I've done so many events, I do continuing legal education for lawyers very often, and we show the way that the hallucinations work, and it's so tricky because it will give you real cases, but it'll give you real cases for the slightly wrong proposition. And then it'll give you a case name in the style of a real case name. And it's wrong, but you've already seen 6 that were right, and now that automation bias creeps in. Oh, I looked up the last 6, I don't need to look up this one. And that's how you see trained lawyers, people with ethical obligations to clients, judges, people who've been at the bar 30, 40, 50 years with tons of experience citing hallucinated cases in case briefs that get submitted to court and in judicial decisions, all of which has happened since ChatGPT became commonplace in November 2023.
So, Josiane, you said a lot of people are using AI now, and they don't have to have a degree. They're using AI to build anything. But it seems like at some point we don't need to study that anymore. We don't need to go to the college or university to start building AI agents and, and selling them to business out there. So how do you see that in the future market? So I don't have to have a degree, but I know to code a lot of agents. I'm selling them out there. How do you see that for professionals? They're actually taking a lot of time to study that, and people that are just like, as my son, he's 15 and is already programming, and he says like, I don't need to go to the college because I know better than most of my teachers now. So how do you see that connection now? Go to a college and university, or just learn by myself?
That's what I believe, right? A degree is nothing without knowledge, because when you get to the interview, it's there. They are going to make questions. They're going to ask difficult questions, and sometimes you have to do something practical there. Sometimes we have to develop, we have to write a piece of code there. Regarding to not have a degree, we know that some tech companies are moving towards that. Google doesn't require any degree. They are based on knowledge. Amazon, you can apply without a degree, is based on knowledge. So they are going to do a screen process, going to do an interview, and then you have a test, and go from there. So it's a knowledge, how you got that knowledge. I feel that when you go to a university and you get a degree, you're being guided, because there are so much content, so many things to look that you don't know. When you go to the university, that content is already like shaped for your goal, where you want to go. If you try to learn by yourself, you can go from one side to another and keep there jumping, and you maybe don't get anywhere. So yeah, but that is a decision that your son has to do it. Maybe start like education to see if he likes, and then keep learning on the side. Because just have a degree doesn't mean nothing anymore. At least for the tech.
First of all, thank you for the wonderful panel. It was really cool to hear all these different perspectives. So as someone who develops AI-powered applications and AI agents, one of the things that I have to deal with is the unrealistic expectations that my users have of what I develop. Any advice on how to deal with it, aside from just telling them that's not how it works?
That's not a common problem. I'm just kidding. Which is why I said change management is the one thing I want AI to be able to do with boring. What did you say? I don't know. Just be able to do it. That's a constant challenge, right? And so there's a lot of themes in there. Sometimes it's around working with your business stakeholder, and there's those. I always find that at the end of a project, there's always these assumptions that existed on the technology side and on the business side that you don't realize existed until you deliver the product, and they're like, wait. And from a technology side, we're trying to build exactly what we were told to build, and it gets missed. So to me, the best way that I can describe that we deal with that scenario is trying to iterate and piece it together as much as we can. Don't build the whole thing all at once, because you may end up throwing out everything that you did, and try and go piece by piece. But this goes back to these are the areas: creativity, judgment, intuition, understanding, pulling out assumptions from the words that people say, body language. That's where AI can't replace the human part of all of this. And I think that is always going to be a challenge. And that's why the relationships that you have with your stakeholders and the people that you're working with, the pressure testing, when you work with people and not AI, it can be really hard sometimes, because I honestly don't always want everyone's opinion, but you have to deal with it, and in that is some learning, right? So I would just say continuously learn, find different strategies to pick those assumptions out that you find out at the end as early as you can.
We can add something quickly, and then we have one more, I think.
I just have a strategy to share that I'm using, and I feel that works pretty well. So what I do when I define the requirements, I make sure that I go there, talk with the stakeholders, say that's requirements, that will be delivered. Are you okay with that? Yes or no? Then probably they're going to say yes. You're going to keep a meeting like every week with the stakeholder, maybe things change or not, but when you deliver the application, you're going to give them a warranty period. That was the good thing, because you say, oh, you have 15 days to test the application. If you find something, I can go here and change. But if you're happy with that, and then in the future you're going to request something, it's a new feature, it's a new project. Because I have that problem that every time that I have a version of the application, people's coming, oh, but could you change this or maybe this or that thing? So that's a way that I found and help like to save a lot of time and make everything documented.
Yeah, really clear upfront scope. Okay, we had one more question. I think that's all we have time for, just on the left here.
Hello there. I have a legal and ethical question actually. So I have a friend that works for a insurance provider, and he receive a call. He provides like a medical insurance, everything. So he receives a call from a dental office, and halfway to the call, we realized it was an AI agent, and it was never specified during the call anywhere. And you ask for personal information, medical information, everything. And like in the end, even refused to actually trust to a human. So what is the legal implications, and how nowadays, if there is any ethical or regulatory laws that involve AI in Canada?
So these are three different questions, right?
Yeah.
A legal framework, a regulatory framework, and an ethical framework.
Yeah, like also,
Was this
what
in
is
Canada?
the legal? Yeah, it's like a.
And it was a Canadian company?
Yes.
Well, I don't think that they're doing things very nicely over there.
Like, is there any like a legal implication as well? Like, if they found
So
out?
there isn't any AI law specifically in Canada right now. But one thing that I think is important to remember when you think about AI is it's still just a product and it still exists in the world. So that means that other laws apply to it. And that means privacy laws apply, even if they're a bit outdated. So there would be a lot of problems there about collection, use, and dissemination of personal information, right? So that then that applies in a corporate context. So that would have run afoul of PIPEDA probably. Also, there's like different laws that fit just general business stuff, right? Tort law. If you have any kind of civil wrong, if you have something called negligent misrepresentation, which sounds like it could fall into that category. There might be contract laws at play. If this is an insurance situation, there could be contracts in play. There also can be specific regulatories that systems that insurers are subject to, right? So just because something is AI and it's new and it's fun doesn't mean that the law that has existed for a long time, like contract and tort, don't necessarily apply in that situation.
All right, thank you very much. That is all the time we have. Thank you so much again to our panelists for sharing all of their insight. It is very clear that the systems we build, are a representation of our values, our creativity, and also our blind spots. So you left us with a lot to think about today. Thank you also to Fabio and to Hyper for putting this on today, and for all of you for being creative and curious and for coming and showing up and learning with us here today. That is it for us right now. Fabio, do you have any final words before we have a little break, or what's happening next?
Yeah, I was going to mention that we have a break for you guys checking the museum. So thanks everyone. It's the first time we have a all-women panel in Hyper, so it's amazing. And
we're making history. Yeah. How long do we have for the break before we have to be back? 10 minutes?
30.
30 minutes.
Yes.
30 minutes. Okay. Mingle. Check out the museum. We will see you shortly.